my report. Glad to see, witness that there are some foreign participants who don't understand Russian, so it's not in vain that I'm speaking English, not in my native tongue. Well, I've been studying this feature, the fivefold conceptual classifications in Indian philosophy, despite since for perhaps 2 decades, and I have discovered no less than about 1,000 of such examples of such conceptual lists. So, I am of a firm opinion that this feature is one of the top secrets of the Indian intellectual methodology. It has been encountered by me in first in tantric lists and in tantric mandalas, in the skeleton of tantric mandalas, then in Abhidharma lists, and in lists of, for example, of the Vaishnava Vyuhas, and etc., etc., etc. But it is nowhere discussed in no text, because methodology, I think methodology was transmitted only orally. And I think when we encounter such lists, it is for us it is a transition to a new level of abstraction and understanding of how did the Indian thinkers compose their text, and how did they think. Here you can see 5 examples of these fivefold conceptual lists, and in advance I can say that I published only 1 paper up to now about such lists, and it concerns the so-called 5 skandhas in Abhidharma, and it is to be seen in in an internet edition. Well, it's a rather concise article. Well, then what to establish the problem? When we have any lists, and if they are neither trivial nor historical nor empirical, for example, empirical, I have 5 fingers, or historical, Mr. So-and-so had 5 children. These are non-conceptual, but if they are conceptual, if we suppose them to be conceptual, we have to ask ourselves about their structure. And as a matter of fact, in the European tradition of classification, we have no precedents of classifications more than 3-fold ones. And on the contrary, we have such examples of the 5-fold classifications as early and as in Upanishads. For example, we have 5 pranas, namely prana, udana, vyana, samana, apana, and they are contrasted to each other by purely linguistic means, by means of prefixes. And this structure discloses itself as being composed of 2 pairs, this apana and udana, of the first pair, the second pair, vyana and samana, and the central, which is prana. And this is in all 5-fold lists investigated by me, we see the same structure. Let's proceed from the vrittayah, panchatayah, klishtah, and the list of these 5 vrittayah. That is, these 5 vrittayah are presented as the structure of what is understood under chitta vritti as such, and but without this list, we could imagine everything about what is chitta and what is chitta vritti. And here we have two pairs. First pair is pramana, that is right cognition, and viparya, that's erroneous cognition. They are united as having content which either does correspond in the case of pramana or does not correspond in the case of viparya to the objective reality. For example, I see something. I see and it is furtry, and say I understand that it is furtry, it is pramana. Or, for example, I see what is objectively furtry, but I think that is pinia and it's erroneous, and so on. So this is first. I'll call these pairs axes because in the tantric mandala they are represented as axes, the horizontal one and the vertical one with the center. So this first pramana viparya axis represents the that aspect of chitta that, according to the to Yoga Shastra thought, that every moment of chitta is every typical moment of chitta is intended to a content, and content is typically objective and either erroneous or not erroneous or right. Then vikalpa, as we know, is the possibility of the chitta's possibility to operate with signs, with semantic structures, which are neutral to error or to truth, but these structures are indispensary condition, is a most important indispensary condition to be able to operate with truth and to operate with any content and to preserve it, to understand it, and so on. In the Yoga Shastra itself, it is said that vikalpa is, by an example, that Purusha is Chitti Shakti. That's the Purusha is the pure potentiality of the consciousness. That it is simple. That it is to say it in European words. It is simply analytical, analytical representation of some linguistic facts, which are a condition to speak about Purusha or about Chitti Shakti, but they are neither true nor false, because to be true or to be false presupposes a relation to the object. But the object is the object in the world and not a semantic object, and it is only a semantic fact. Then now another sorry. Okay, it's then now nidra and sprita, that is the sleep, and to be more precise, deep sleep, that is, which is called in Upanishad sushupti and not swapna, and smriti, that is memory. What nidra is described as a state of consciousness which is not which is recognized only after it was finished. When somebody is awake, he understands how had he slept, whether he slept under tamas or under rajas or under predominance of sattva. But when he sleeps, he doesn't understand neither of these states. So it is, as it is said in Yoga Shastra, it is abhava pratyaya, and it is the content of it is the content, the reflexive content of consciousness about the previous state of consciousness, which was contentless, and it previous, that is in the past. And what is smriti? It is partial recognition or partial ability to reproduce a previous state of consciousness. Why it is principle to say partial? Because if it were total, the consciousness would have returned to a previous moment of its timeline, which is absent, only partial. So these pair represent the temporal flux of the consciousness, with two opposites. First, the without content, nidra, and with some content, meritaya. Also, they refer both only to the past, because the future does not exist, but the past has existed. So we have such a structure that the first pair represents the content, the second pair, 2a and 2b, represents the temporal aspect, and vikalpa, which is in the center, represents the possibility to operate with signs, which preserve the meanings and is the indispensable condition to be the same in the flux and and so on. That is what is the structure of the Panchavrittaya. Second, let's see. Secondly, let's go to the first my line. That's Kshiptam, Mudham, etc. It is from the commentary of Vyasa and Yoga-darśana, and these are the 5 levels of chitta, or the functionality of chitta. Their structure is as follows. First, Kshiptam is Kshiptam and Mudham is the first pair, and these are 2 levels of consciousness in which when the consciousness is immersed in these levels, yoga is absolutely impossible. And the yoga, one can practice yoga in the state of vikshipta. The states ekagram and niruddham are, on the contrast to the first 2, typically yogic states. What is the opposition between the 2, 1, 2, and 1, 1 plus and 1 minus from the one side, and the 2 plus and 2 minus from the other side? It is the point of control. The consciousness in Kshiptam and Mudham is controlled from without. For example, Mudham is contentless state of mind. When, for example, if one is exhausted, having walked 100 kilometers or having drunken a liter of vodka, and he has no content at all, or he has to sleep. Yes, and Kshiptam is the state of consciousness which is which is caught by an object of the outer world and doesn't understand and reflect itself. As an example, if a naive consciousness, if a naive mind is first presented by, for example, to say porno video for some 15 or 20 seconds, he will lose this man or this woman will lose himself completely, and he doesn't understand what he is. He's completely there in the display, for example, and so it is. These 2 modes are characterized by the common feature of being not understanding oneself and being caught from without. Vikshiptam is the most typical state of consciousness. Now, for example, me and all of you are in that state. It is Vikshiptam, it is dispersed consciousness. everyone switches in this state of consciousness from within to from the outer world to the inner world. From the one side, we are thinking or fancying something. From the other side, we give adequacy to the signals of the outer world. That is meant by V, Vikshikta. And from this state of consciousness, we can begin to practice yoga. What is ekagram? The ekagra chitta bhumi is nothing else than dhyana, and it is it is a concentrated mode of consciousness where, due to previously accomplished pratyahara, the subject doesn't respond to the peripheral peripheral signals of indriyas, and he is concentrated on a process of contemplation or intuition, which can be visual, audio, or purely conceptual. For example, one can be in dhyana, in ekagra while representing in his mind a symphony or an area or in opera. And niruddham, so here in ekagra, the point of control is from within. So it is in the niruddham, in the 2 minus. It is the very limit of the point of control, where the concentration is so sharp that it eliminates completely any display, any display on any over content, and it corresponds either to the most advanced states of dhyana or to samadhi itself. So we have also this structure is 2 pairs. Then let's come to the structure of kleshas. The kleshas here will be attentive to the in brackets what I have added to the yoga to the sutra. First is avidya, and it is the central point. Avidya is I'll interpret it as a aberration of value, which is exemplified by the authors of Yoga Shastra as an erroneous, illusory, better to say illusory, an illusory apprehension of or understanding of something uncertain as certain, or something unstable as stable, or of something ugly as beautiful. And it is the common ground of all other 4 kleshas, which out of them, the raga 1 plus and dvesha 1 minus represent the two possible reactions with plus and minus, that is passion, raga, perhaps passion, or aversion, dvesha, towards an object. Here we have a duality of the subject and object, and somebody can have raga, be rakta or be dvishta, only because he is in avidya, because his value is in aberration. Then we have asmita and abhinivesha. Asmita is a privileged attention, tendency to be for tendency of anybody's consciousness to be more dear, more central to oneself, to be oneself than to the objects. and it is so it is a positive relation to oneself, to the, well, no, to say it's more precise, positive relation to the image of oneself, because oneself as oneself is certainly Purusha according to the Yoga Shastra tradition. What is Abhinivesha? It is explained as the subliminal fear of as grounded on a subliminal smriti, memory about how was it unpleasant to die, not willing to die. So it is the same as asmita, but from the negative point of view. So asmita, I'll explain it. So let me be. Abhinivesha, let it not be that I will cease to be. These are also pairs to one. This is self-relation, relations to the image of oneself, and raga and vesha are relations to objects which are not recognized in oneself. And certainly the common ground is the duality between subject and object. Then now let's I'll mention that this same structure is found in members of dhyana, dhyanangani. I'll only enumerate them. It is vichara, vitarka, vichara, ananda, asmita, and ekagrata, or ekagrya. And it is just the same with only one secondary exception, as the structure of dhyana is found and explained in the early Buddhist texts. So we can say that it is one and the same process, only and the differences of explanations are due only to the different metaphysical grounds of Buddhists and yogas. Now let's come to the last one, the yama, niyama, asana, and so on. Well, it's well known that yoga is Ashtanga yoga. But among these Ashta or 8 angas, we find three antarangas, which are called collectively Sanyama, namely dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. What they have in common? They are experienced only from within, and no external observer can say what is now, in which state of mind is now a yogi who has accomplished pratyahara. And on the contrary, the 5 previous states, which we can call them Bahyanga, have the same structure over 2 pairs and the central point, namely yama and niyama are 2 regulations. First, yama is a varitra, that is the negative regulation. Do not perform something. Even, no, I'll explain a bit. Satya, to speak plainly or naively, it is said to say truth. No, surely it is meant do not lie, or do not harm, that is ahimsa, or do not steal, and so on. All 5 yamas are varitra. Niyamas are charitra. They are positive regulation. For example, say perform japa, or read the textbooks of yoga, and so that is swadhyaya, and others, and so on. Then this is the axis of content. Yama and niyama are some content. Asana and pranayama is a pair of the temporal, or to say, or energetic level. Asana means to stop movements, and it is the spatial aspect. pranayama means to stop partially or totally the organismic dynamics, not to exhale or not to inhale, or both not to. So these are, the first pair is refers to content, the second pair refers to activity, and these are 4 predispositions. When they are performed, we can perform the central one, the pratyahara. And pratyahara is the prerequisite to switch oneself from the vikshipta state of mind to the ekagra state of mind. And so I think I have said everything. To conclude, these are not the list of the lists presented by me is not exhaustive. There are some others also in Yoga Shastra, to say nothing about many other Indian traditions. And when we understand, and when we can understand, remark, and explain it, we can, I suppose, much deeply understand how did they think, and why did they name, for example, avidya, smita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, and not something other, something else, or pramana, from pramana to smriti, and not something else. That's how they think and what they presuppose. That's all. Thank you for your attention. Any questions?
Thank you very much, dear Professor. So, if any question, please, you can ask.
Remarks, indignations, and so on.
Демонстрацию экрана можно убрать, наверное. Коллеги, пожалуйста, вопросы. Any questions? Everything is clear. Вопросы есть? Dear Professor James Mallinson, you have a question? Okay, please.
Yes. Well, it's not really a question, but thank you very much for the presentation. I was just wondering if Professor Paribok was aware of the work of Nicholas Allen, who was in Oxford, and he published a paper in 1998 about Indo-European features of yoga, and he looked specifically, and also in his work more broadly, he looked at these groups of 5, and I thought that might be of interest if Professor Paribok doesn't know.
You see, his approach is very broad, although I can agree with him. But so the first most salient, most obvious feature is, for example, east, west, north, south, and center, and some others. But I think that only in the Indian tradition, it was this pre-conceptual, pre-theoretical inclinations were developed to the conceptual level. I don't remember now whether it was mentioned by the professor, but I think it seems to me that no, because in all the European tradition, from typical for it is the Porphyrias Isagoga. We have only the pattern of the 2 opposites, or 2 opposites within something neutral, and we have no conceptualization of any 5s.
Okay, thank you. And there's one other comment as well.
Because
sorry, continue, please carry on. Please continue.
Well, no, I'm listening.
Oh, right. Well, I was just to say, from at the other end of the time scale, in terms of yoga text, there's a text which I think is quite late, but it's an important yoga text associated with the Nath Sampradaya, called the Siddha Siddhanta Paddhati. And that includes many groups of five, many groups of different groups of five concepts related to yoga. So I think that
Oh,
might,
yes, sure.
yeah, so that might be of interesting.
Sure. But yes, there's a there is a huge number of fives, for example, in the Buddhist Tantra commentaries, really huge number, and it is very interesting. And apart from fives, there are groups of eights. For example, 8 cities is another symmetrical group, or 9, that is 8 plus 1. Well, these are the 8 is the group of 8 rasas, which is 8 plus 1, the Shantarasa. It's another interesting group, not so widely recognized, more complex and also very interesting. So I think it is a very vast field of research, for me at least.
Thank you.